Now, it's my very great pleasure to introduce the Honourable Angelo Farrugia, the Speaker of the Parliament of Malta. Malta is, apart from being a delightful island, which I've had the honour of visiting, along with a good few others, mind you, around in the Commonwealth during my time as international chairperson. Not a lot, unfortunately, but quite a few. And I know there are some marvellous places around the Commonwealth. But Malta is about to become the centre of the world, in that the Commonwealth heads of government are meeting there, and it's not very long after that that Malta assumes the presidency of the European Union. If normally a speaker or even a member of parliament would think they have quite a lot on their plate, I think our speaker this afternoon knows almost no limit to the responsibilities which are swirling around him at the present time. It's a delight to have you here, Angelo, and I invite you to address our conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Ellen, for your kind introduction and kind words towards my country. We are trying to do our best in the circumstances, I tell you. Honourable colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I really find it indeed very honourable and honoured to address such a distinguished crowd gathering of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and students at the closing of this event focusing on human rights. I believe that the safeguard of human rights should be a ubiquitous element in all of our daily activities. And since this gathering brings members of Parliament here present from all over the Commonwealth or from many countries within the Commonwealth, I would like to start by appealing to each and every one of us to always bear in mind the core values and principles of the Commonwealth as declared in the 2012 Charter, to which we, people of the Commonwealth, have committed ourselves. As legislators in our respective countries, I feel that these principles should underpin all other legislative work. I have been requested to speak this evening about the future of the Commonwealth and its potential to be a global force for good. I want to make it clear at the outset. I strongly disagree, very strongly disagree, that those who contend that the Commonwealth is a terminally ill patient with little or no future to look to. On the contrary, I feel that if used well, the Commonwealth, if used well, the Commonwealth and its organizations are far from being on the deathbed. And I will try to explain. One cannot simply look to the future without first looking back at why the Commonwealth was set up 65 years ago, when many of us, of course, were not even born. Certainly, I was not even born at that time. But 65 years ago, the Commonwealth was set up. That the organization has survived this long is already in itself an achievement, and in my opinion, this survival was possible in spite of the diversity of its members, due to the fact that all members have an equal say, regardless of their size or economic stature. And on this point, I want to go into the demographics. If we take the population of the Commonwealth, as it is today, it is 2.2 billion. That is, we are talking about 1/3 of the world population, of which over 60% of this 2.2 million, are all people under the age of 30. Compare this with the population of the European Union, which is 750 million, which is 1/3 of the population of the Commonwealth. This contrasts strongly with the situation of what's happening in the European Union, where the European Union population is not only 3 times smaller than that of the Commonwealth, but is also have clear projections that show that the aging, coupled with falling fertility rates, will continue to characterize the future of Europe with this problem. Contrary, when you bear in mind these statistics that show clearly what's happening in the Commonwealth and the European Union, one should immediately realize that these demographics, the Commonwealth has a vast potential for development, for growth, for private investment and employment. Hence, the importance of thinking more Commonwealth-wise. The smaller member states, on the other hand, we have 31 of the members, of all the members, that is 58% of all the Commonwealth members, are classified as small states. That is, they have a population of less than 1.5 million. And my country is one of them. What makes, however, this feature even more striking is the fact that all these small states have an equal voice in this organization and their views on issues of common interest. For example, you can mention climate change. It was mentioned during this today. The susceptibility to natural disasters, environmental protection, and gender equality, and other issues that carry equal weight as those of the larger member countries. Now, the Commonwealth Charter, which I referred to earlier, affirms clearly the role of our organization, and I quote, as a recognized intergovernmental champion of small states advocating for their special needs, providing policy advice on political, economic, and social development issues, and delivering technical assistance, close quote. Therefore, the message is very clear. It affirms that the divergence that often exists between the member countries are not to be considered as divisive, but are an incentive in their own for convergence. Myself, I already mentioned myself coming from a small state, coming from an island republic in the Mediterranean. I speak with satisfaction, as Sir Alan said in his introduction, that we already offered, as a small country, to host the pioneering initiatives of the Small States Center of Excellence and the Small States Trade Financing Facility. In fact, the center, endorsed by the Commonwealth leaders in November 2013 in Colombo, aims to impart targeted capacity building programs and interventions in the areas of democracy and development. Malta has already pledged to support these initiatives by providing human resources and infrastructure for this center, and in this regard, I sincerely appeal to you as parliamentarians of the Commonwealth to voice your support to your government to ensure its successful establishment. I mentioned these 2 initiatives only as 2 concrete ways in which the Commonwealth can continue, as I said, can continue to prove its effectiveness and its relevance. However, now I would like to come to the point where we have to discuss now the relevance of the Commonwealth in the promotion of human rights. This is all about Magna Carta, which was the idea centuries ago, where today we are still discussing human rights, because human rights cannot be taken as obvious in our countries. The 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta should serve as an occasion to stop and think about how the development of human rights to what we know now has been the cornerstone of liberty and democracy that we enjoy today. But, dear colleagues, I must admit that an anniversary should not be just an occasion, just for us to reminisce and gloat on our achievements. As part of a wider Commonwealth reform, 2015, this year, is a good time to think and work and look forward and determine ourselves what needs to be done. One should keep in mind that the Commonwealth is not simply an intergovernmental organization meeting every 2 years and adopting political conclusions from one meeting to another. That is not enough. As members of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, you are certainly well aware of the contribution of the parliamentary dimension of the Commonwealth. An example is election observation missions are only one concrete example of the tools available to us. In this respect, I must declare my appreciation for the expressed belief of my friend Sir Alan that the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association needs to have a stronger voice, in the fight against human rights abuses. No matter, and I repeat it, no matter how uncomfortable this could be for some of us. I cannot but agree with Sir Alan, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in this. And I believe that as part of the wider Commonwealth reform, and I'm coming now to proposals for reform, to which I will return very shortly, I feel that for this organization to be a true promoter, a guardian of the rights of its citizens, as set up in the Harare Declaration, it requires a centralized organ responsible for ensuring the respect of this set of core values across all its territories. There are two models that come into my mind, and I just go through them one by one. The first model is one based on the United Nations Human Rights Council. That is a council which would be responsible for strengthening the promotion and the protection of human rights in its member countries and for addressing situations of human rights violations and make recommendations on them. That's the first model. The second model, which is a very strong model, which is the European model, is that based on the Council of Europe, European Court of Human Rights, with which individuals or group of individuals could lodge their complaints against their member states on breaches of human rights issues not satisfactorily resolved in their home country, that is, following and the exhaustion of all domestic remedies. This is the second model. Now, which one is the best? Both of them are good, but you have to start from somewhere. And I believe that the Commonwealth Human Rights Council would be the appropriate first step as a very strong beginning. Now, due credit should also be given to the work already done and being done by the civil society, which is another tier of the Commonwealth. With the right financial and technical assistance, non-governmental organizations are well placed to bring into fruition the principles on which the Commonwealth is founded. As an organization, it has differed from others which for the years have been riddled with political divisions and power struggles. The Commonwealth has proven to be a forum which is much more than a talking shop. It is very well placed to be a forum which provides an opportunity for all members to learn from each other and explore opportunities of collaboration. Now, on the subject of human rights, which you have debated at length over the past days, the work of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative in advocating for better respect, better protection, and better promotion of international human rights standards, and in ensuring greater adherence to the Commonwealth Harare principles, comes to mind as also a tangible result of this collaboration. Honourable colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, last year the Commonwealth celebrated its 65th anniversary from when it was formally established in 1949. To date, it comprises of 53 member states spanning across all the 6 continents, or the 6 inhabited continents: Asia, Africa, the Americas, Europe, Pacific. However, it may seem ironic or perhaps even illogical at first that in addition to former ties with Great Britain, the most significant common factor among the members is in fact their own diversity. And the fact that this organization, being one of the world's oldest political association of states, have survived this long is clearly and surely a sign of success and strength. However, it is not enough to pat ourselves on the back and congratulate ourselves on a job well done. That is why we are here. Over the past 65 years, the political and social tapestry of the world have evolved greatly. We have a lot of challenges. It's enough to just hear the news every day and hear about the ISIS, for example, and hear about economic tragedies in certain countries, Greece. The great technological advancement, the scale of which has not been experienced since the Industrial Revolution, especially those made possible since the advent of the Internet, have, metaphorically speaking, brought the whole world to our fingertips. I am confident that all of you, students present, have brought along at least one mobile device on you. Everybody has one mobile device on which we can access to our emails, keep in touch with our friends and families, and with a few clicks, you would know what's going on around the world in real time. So better communication and connectivity have also meant that the people have become more mobile, making it increasingly easy to establish and foster relationships, both for personal as well as for trade and investment purposes. But yet, also for organizing terrorism, also for organizing crime, also for manipulating populations. We are living in this age, dear colleagues. So many have argued that in this ever-changing world, the Commonwealth, there are people who argue this, the Commonwealth has become irrelevant, or that is not fit for the purpose. And it is against this backdrop, that reforms must be planned. We have to make reforms. The report of the Eminent Persons Group of Commonwealth Heads of Government, adopted in Perth, Australia, in 2011, has launched this process. The first tangible step resulting from this report was the adoption of the 2013 of the Commonwealth Charter, which I mentioned earlier. Whilst this new charter goes a long way in reaffirming the core principles which guide the work of the Commonwealth, yet the reform needs to go further. It has to. We cannot stop there. We have to look at our organization and the aims it intends to achieve. From this exercise, we have and we need to evaluate which model of organization would be more conducive to achieve our aims, to achieve the Commonwealth aims. However, dear colleagues, the challenges facing the Commonwealth are not any different from the challenges faced by any other intergovernmental institution. I mean, we know what's happening in the European Union and other international bodies. Allow me to refer to the speech made by the Prime Minister of Malta. And I'm mentioning him because last July, he made a speech delivered in the London School of Economics on the future of the Commonwealth. And in his address, the Prime Minister Muscat proposed 3 options. And I want to mention them because they are options which can be considered. The first option is, and I quote, is disbanding the Commonwealth, completely the Commonwealth as it is today, and regrouping, setting out updated guidelines and charter of values to which participants must strictly abide, close quote. That's the first model. That is, such a step would mean that it would raise the issue of membership, assuming that the embryonic ties to Britain are abandoned, and of the possibility of consensual withdrawal. That is the first model. The second option is, that has been motivated and mooted, is to have what we call the Multispeed Commonwealth. Now, what is the Multispeed Commonwealth? This option is based on the extreme divergences between some of the 53 members. I give an example. Compare and contrast the population, for example, of Tuvalu, which has a population of around 10,000, and that of India, 1.2 billion. Compare and contrast, for example. The United Nations Human Development Index of Malawi, which is ranked 170, and that of the United Kingdom, which is ranked at 26. Now, a reformed, what we call a multi-speed Commonwealth, a reformed multi-speed Commonwealth, could informally regroup the 53 members according to the set criteria, effectively creating subgroups of countries with similar characteristics who could work together to address common problems and achieve common goals. Now, according to the Prime Minister, when he was explaining this in the London School of Economics last year, he said this: members of this Commonwealth could decide to adhere to strict rules, from democracy to gender equality, from religious freedom to minority rights. And when we speak minority rights, we include also that discussed this morning, LGBTI issues and others. From transparency to environmental sustainability. These rules should be much more stringent than the current charter, with membership coming after close scrutiny and screening behind an ongoing process. Now I go for the third option. Now the third option is the third option for reform, that is for reform of the Commonwealth, is a development of the multi-speed model, which is more formalized on the basis of ingrained differences between different groups of countries and the creation of even more divisions. In this model, an improved Commonwealth would engage in a more regular and dynamic exercise by means of which each and every country is offered more political and technical assistance, with programs specifically intended to nudge towards better governance and more open societies, fostering convergence rather than divergence. That's the third model. Now I feel, you can talk about other models, but we have to make reforms. I feel that the decision to open up membership, for example, of the Commonwealth to countries without a British colonial past or constitutional link to Great Britain, and here I refer, for example, to the African country of Mozambique and Rwanda that joined 1995 and 2009 respectively the Commonwealth, is a sign of the path that their organization intends to follow. And it was a good decision. And I explain why. If we take, and if you allow me, I will take some more time in this respect. I would like to speak briefly about the fact that, for example, in September 2008, now everybody read about Rwanda, everybody knew what took place during the years in the 90s, but in 2008, Rwanda became the first nation in Africa. And now I would add, in my opinion, in the world, I might not be mistaken, probably I'm correct, in the world, to elect a majority of women parliamentarians. In fact, at that time, 45 of the 80 members of the Assembly, of the Chamber of Deputies, were all women. And the number increased 2 years ago, in 2013, from 48, it went up to 51. Another positive experience is Cameroon. We've been here, we've been recently in the Commonwealth Conference in Yaoundé, and I found that this is also positive, because in this respect, Cameroon, in the 2013 elections, you elected 53 female MPs from a total of 180. But when you compare that in 1960, there was only one female MP from 100. So this is what is achieved by means of a provision that we can make in our electoral code, electoral laws, which provides the need for political parties to respect gender balance in selecting candidates for election. Even my country, the parliamentary delegation in the European Union, which is composed of 6 elected MEPs in the European Union Parliament, out of 6, 4 are women. And this is a positive sign in this respect. I have no doubt that the majority of us here present come from parliaments where we have this gender issue problem, where the proportion of male MPs is very much, not much, very much greater than female MPs. And this is a learning opportunity, dear colleagues, for all of us. The experience of Rwanda, which I said, and Cameroon and others, serve as food for thought and are evidence in themselves that the differences between us are not necessarily divisive issues, but can be used for us as learning opportunities. As I said at the beginning of my address, the Commonwealth still has room to not only survive. I started with the quote that some say it is in the dying bed. Now I say it is not only there to survive, but also to grow. For the Commonwealth to remain relevant, it has to sever its underlying dependency on ties, and I don't want to be misquoted, on ties with Britain. Now, I want to explain this, and please do not misinterpret me on this. We are here to discuss the issue. By severing ties with Britain, I mean, and I do not mean, that we should discard everything British and go on our separate ways. I do not want to mean that. The examples of Mozambique and Rwanda are examples and evidence of the way forward. Britain, with its history in championing the values of democracy the values of human rights, and the rule of law will always remain at heart and remain as a central reference point, like it has been for the past decades. But I'm not here to tell you which would be the best option for reform from any models which I presented, or any other which we can think about together. The Commonwealth, we represent the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is only as relevant as we, members, want it to be. We need to focus on common agenda. We can build new ideas, new mechanisms to strengthen the relationship that binds all the members of the Commonwealth. Any viable solution that secures the commitment of all involved is one that finds a balance between the interests of the member states and, which is very important, the collective interests of the Commonwealth. And now I want to come to the conclusive part, which Sir Alan mentioned, the Commonwealth Head of Government meeting, which is going to take place in Malta in 2015, which is the second meeting of the CHOGM in 10 years. Because 10 years ago, we also presided the CHOGM in Malta. The Commonwealth Secretary General, Kamala Sharma, has described Malta as a model Commonwealth country, which will, for the second time in 10 years, as I said, become chair of our family of nations. As I'm sure that everyone present here knows, that the next CHOGM will take place in November this year. The theme of this year's meeting has been carefully chosen, bearing in mind the importance of the 2015 summit, in order to deliver a sense of unity and collaboration among the Commonwealth member countries. That is, the Commonwealth adding global value. That will seek to promote, and we have to work on this, positive, active, and forward-looking dialogue aimed clearly at paving a way towards enhancing the Commonwealth as a relevant, important, and global actor in the international arena. With a strengthening role, the Commonwealth can raise the voices of those member countries who on their own, would struggle to make the voices heard. As I spoke before today in my presentation, I believe that the future of the Commonwealth should be. I cannot conclude my address without referring to the importance of the role of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. I firmly believe that the Commonwealth parliamentarians constitute an invaluable resource, as they can take back to their parliaments and governments a greater recognition of the power that the Commonwealth has to act as a force of good in the world. It is for this reason that precisely this afternoon I had a meeting with the chairperson of the Executive Committee, the Honourable Dr. Shri Sharmeen Chaudhry, the Speaker of Bangladesh, in order to work together. And I also discussed this issue with the Honourable Prime Minister of Malta, to find a way to include the views and opinions of the parliamentarians of the Commonwealth on issues of common interest, which will be indicated in the agenda, in the next agenda of the Heads of Government meeting this year. This opportunity to bring to the fore the voices of the people of the Commonwealth is surely not one to be dismissed. This and other various opportunities for collaboration, which I have referred to, on the premise of deep organisation reform, are, in my opinion, the way forward of the Commonwealth if it wants to remain relevant to the people it represents and be a true global force for good. I strongly believe this is the way forward. Thank you very much.
Colleagues, first of all, I'd like to thank Angelo for that extremely powerful speech with some very interesting challenges.